We are live for Critical Q&A number 484. Hello today in the February 2nd in the year of our Lord 2025. And I get to be with you guys here live again today with some new equipment. Thank you very much to someone very special out there who helped me acquire a new teleprompter, which I am using today, and I can actually see the comments right in front of me as the stream is going here. Yeah, that's what's new. So I don't have to keep looking over here. I can look over here. Now, I still will check over here every now and again to see how the stream is going and stuff. But, let me get the Q&A actually started here. Let me throw that up on the thing here. It's all happening right in front of me. Please put your questions here as we start Q&A. Okay, great. And now we have started the Q&A, and I have the Q&A box up in front of me. So let's switch over to the host and chat screen so I can glance over here every now and again and see your comments up on the screen over here if I want to. So I won't see them as they're going. I'll see your questions as they pop up in the Q&A box here and then in front of me, and then I will throw them up on the screen and answer them. Anyway, we're just playing around. Let's play with this new equipment and see what we've got. But I also wanted to let you all know, now that I've got this thing, it is such a upgrade from the earlier teleprompter hell that I was sort of in. Teleprompters are really great tools to use, but they can be incredibly frustrating when they are just running off of an app on your phone, you know, that is sitting below the camera, and you're trying to control it with a little Bluetooth controller, which is what I was doing. And it was just kind of not great stuff, right? And that's what a lot of YouTubers are sort of stuck with unless you can afford some of the high-end stuff. So I really want to thank one of you all out there who, I'm not going to throw the name out because I don't know if they want me to, but I really very much appreciate it. I did something this week. I want to get to your questions as they come on in here. I can see them literally coming up on the box as it's going. I love this. Anyway, but I've also got a 5-part series scripted right now, all ready to go. And the first one loaded into the teleprompter so I can start shooting it this week. And it's going to be pretty short. It's not going to be this big, extensive, long, deep dive kind of series. I'm purposefully doing something shorter and sort of trying to get to the main easily understood points about cults, cult psychology, cult control, the cult recovery, like just a quick series of videos that I'm going to try to put up rapid fire as I can, that are not just going to be talking head videos. I'm going to throw some stock footage and graphics and stuff into it too, kind of old school, right? So it'll be pre-recorded, and it'll have not just me sitting here yapping the whole time. So and I thought I might even use the green screen. So anyway, that's going to be a little bit of creative fun I'll be having this week if all goes together well. And yeah, Bud123, I just glanced over at the comments here on the regular comments. And, it's funny. They're asking whether, is it better to speak off the cuff with some notes rather than speaking based off a script? I think it depends on what it is I'm talking about. Obviously, when I'm responding live here to your questions coming in on the Q&A, it is all off the cuff, right? It's all just spontaneously right there. But if I have time to consider exactly what I want to say, exactly what words I want to use, exactly what order I want to speak in, present my ideas in, it really helps to take some time, work out a script. Or, the great thing about this setup here that I have now is I can just put an outline there and just operate off of an outline. You can kind of hybrid it a little bit where you can just kind of have something reminding you of your talking points without it being a word for word, dissertation. So, so I think it depends on, what it is I'm trying to do as to whether I feel one is a better thing to do than another. I'll put it that way, right? Kind of depends on what use case, I guess. Okay. Good. Yeah. But this is fun. This is kind of fun. Okay. And there are some questions. Oh yeah, we got quite a few questions coming in. Now there was something else that I wanted to, this is it. I wanted to share something with you guys. I want to share a couple things with you about current events. I hope this helps. That's all I'm trying to do is help, right? There's a lot of stress out there right now. There's a lot of people freaking out, losing, heads exploding on an hourly basis because of reactions to what our government is doing. Whether it's tariffs or whether it's executive orders or whether it's other, heated press conferences and dramatic accusations being laid at toward minority groups or other individuals or whatever. And there's a lot of about some of that with some people out there. Some young people especially are really very, very disturbed by some of this and don't know what to think or what to do or how to think about this. And it's hard to navigate. And so I wanted to say two things that I thought might help that do not directly address any of this. I'm not going to sit here and spout opinions right now about these things. We can get to that in the questions. But I wanted to say this. First off, I have spoken at length and even pulling out my cards, my critical thinking cards right now. See if I can find this one really fast. But there's two logical fallacies or cognitive biases that I'd like to talk about today. That a lot of people can fall into because here it is. Because they are legitimately emotionally invested in the survival of this country and their own personal survival and that of their family. And they're very, very worried about the future of that, right? And when we get worried and when we get stressed, we tend to have, what you might say, the lizard parts of our brain. I hate that expression. It's not accurate, but it works, right? Y'all get what I'm talking about. Go into activation. And the more that's activated, this is just a biological fact, okay? This is just how kind of our brains work. When you're freaking out, when you're emotional, when you're anxious, when you're fearful, then automatically there's a lessening of your ability to rationally, cognitively use your faculties to figure things out. It becomes a lot more reactionary, a lot more basic, the way you think. And there's a couple of biases that come into play real fast. One of them is called confirmation bias. You and I have spoken about this for years now on this channel. This should not be anything new to my regular viewers, this term confirmation bias. You favor things that confirm your existing beliefs. We talk about this all the time when it comes to cult members, and how once you've accepted or bought into a belief set or an idea that a guru is infallible, a belief system is sacred and more valuable than human lives, you buy into these ridiculous ideas, and you start taking every single new piece of information that you get or sensory input you get, and you use it to confirm that bias, right? We are primed to see and agree with ideas that fit our preconceptions and to ignore and dismiss information that conflicts with them. Confirmation bias is something that lives in all of us. It is not just something that happens with cult members. We all do it. We all do it hundreds of times a day, thousands of times a day, in how we receive information and use it to confirm what we already No. And sometimes we are wrong. And when we're reactive, when we are, lizard brain oriented, when we're in, the whole fight flight thing, then confirmation bias still applies, still works. And things that come in, we will use to feed that fear, feed our anxiety. We kind of can't help it unless we know about this. This isn't like everybody should know this. It's not obvious, but that doesn't mean it's not true. This is what we do. So be careful of which biases you are confirming. Right? But check yourself before you wreck yourself is kind of what I'm saying with that. The other one is pessimism bias. You overestimate the likelihood of negative outcomes. Now more than ever, we need to have our head on straight, right? We need to be clear-headed. Pessimism is often a defense mechanism against disappointment. Perhaps the worst aspect of pessimism is that even if something good happens, you'll probably feel pessimistic about it anyway. Right? So between confirmation bias and pessimism bias, you can create your own negative view of the world that is worse than it actually is. And I only want to point that out as something potentially helpful to you or a helpful suggestion, because it is very, very important that we not fall prey to our negativity. There's enough negativity being thrown at us, and it will get worse. I'm sorry, but it will. And we need to be ready for this. We need to get our head on straight and kind of armor up a bit to not be overly pessimistic and overly emotional about what's happening. We don't have to look harder to find things to be upset about. There's going to be plenty to be upset about, right? You don't have to make mountains out of molehills, make more out of things than they are. Just because Donald Trump or some administration official says something doesn't mean almost anything. It's watch the ball, keep your eye on the ball. What are they doing? Not what are they saying? How are they feinting? How are they propagandizing? That's not what's important. What's important is what they're actually doing. And that's an important thing to say at this moment in time, I think. So that's why I wanted to throw that out there. Okay. I had a quote for you. And this is funny that I'm going to use this quote, but it's so good that I thought it was just too good not to share it with you. It's a little long, so I'm going to, I didn't feed it into my teleprompter. I put it on my phone here. So here we go. This is a quote from the author C.S. Lewis. And I chuckle only because C.S. Lewis is a religious, apologist. And like professionally, he wrote, to a great degree of Christian apologia. He also is the author of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and the whole Narnia series. Pretty smart guy. And I've always liked his writing, right? Even if I don't necessarily agree with his beliefs or his apologia. But this was just too good to not share. Okay, here we go. In one way, we think a great deal too much of the atomic bomb. Quote, how are we to live in an atomic age? Quote, right? I am tempted to reply, why, as you would have lived in the 16th century when the plague visited London almost every year, or as you would have lived in a Viking age when raiders from Scandinavia might land and cut your throat any night. Or indeed, as you are already living in an age of cancer, an age of syphilis, an age of paralysis, an age of air raids, an age of railway accidents, an age of motor accidents. In other words, do not let us begin by exaggerating the novelty of our situation. Believe me, dear sir or madam, you and all whom you love were already sentenced to death before the atomic bomb was invented. And quite a high percentage of us were going to die in unpleasant ways. We had indeed one very great advantage over our ancestors: anesthetics. But we have that still. It is perfectly ridiculous to go about whimpering and drawing long faces because the scientists have added one more chance of painful and premature death to a world which already bristled with such chances, and in which death itself was not a chance at all, but a certainty. This is the first point to be made, and the first action to be taken is to pull ourselves together. If we are all going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb, let that bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things. Praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends over a pint and a game of darts. Not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. They may break our bodies. A microbe can do that. But they need not dominate our minds. Okay, thought I'd share that. All right, so that's my show opening today. So let's get to your questions now. Think I can just start throwing them up on the screen here. Now, the first one is, let me see if I've got that. There it is. Okay, now this one is a little obscured up on the top of the screen, so I'm going to take a look at it here. I liked the video you posted yesterday with Jeremiah and Julia. Thank you. I enjoyed that talk too. A couple sex therapists I spoke with on my podcast yesterday about post-cult sexual health. To your knowledge, did sexual activities come up in session, and were people punished for them or chastised based on those confessions? All the time. Probably the number one most common kind of immoral activity or confessed activity that goes on in Scientology confessionals is of a sexual nature. Probably the second highest would be financial shenanigans, crimes, right? Theft, that kind of thing, extortion. Sex crimes are way, way, way up there as to things that are on people's, and of course this is reflective of the society as a whole. It's not just the individual, and it's what do we value? What do we think of as good, bad, right, wrong? Well, the American society is really hung up on sex in a lot of ways. So, of course, all the taboo connected with sex creates all kinds of moral problems and issues and dilemmas, and this grates on people's consciousnesses, right? So, so there you go. That's the kind of thing that's on people's minds when they want to or need to confess to, have you been up to bad or wrongdoing? Yeah, so I'll say that. And were people punished all the time? Yeah. This is masturbation, obviously, is a huge thing in Scientology for a lot of people. So they'll end up being disciplined for it in various ways, which Scientology, being Scientology, usually involves giving money. It's very, what was those, the Catholic indulgences of back in the day? It's very, very similar. You can buy your way out of, the wrongdoings that you've done, committed, by paying or donating to the Church of Scientology for books or services or other people's books or services, or, give to the IS or give to the building funds. There's no shortage of things that they want you to pay for. The L. Ron Hubbard Hall, right? So they can have events in Clearwater. All these things are all avenues of funneling money to the top of this organization. And sexual guilt is a great way to get people to pay. When you have the amount of false and outdated morality that exists around the topic of our sexuality in our modern world, right? We have thousands of years of gross levels of ignorance connected with our bodies and the sex and sexual act. And and so many taboos from almost every culture connected with this. So this is one of the easiest things to to control people with. It's basic, so easy. So, yeah, so Scientology does that. Okay, let's carry on here. Ex-witness Vernon. Chris, what do you think about Trump taxing 25% to Mexico and Canada? What do I think? I think that Donald Trump and his financial advisory team are a train of fools when it comes to sound economic policy. And by sound economic policy, I mean policy that would be built and operated on the idea of utilitarian ethics in a nutshell, right? Greatest good for greatest number. What is it that we're trying to do? We're trying to run a society, and how do we do that? Well, there's a whole lot of things going on in society, and the flow of energy, which provides money, right, is sort of an energy flow through society that enables things to happen, right? It creates motion. It gets people doing things, in other words, is a very necessary part of running a society. And a healthy society has a good flow of this stuff, up, down, all around, right? It moves horizontally, it moves vertically throughout the society. And a good economy is one that, obviously rewards production, in other words, value, not just production, but production that results in something that people want, goods and services. And this is it's all 101 stuff. I'm just, kind of talking econ 101 stuff. So but I say all of this because it appears to me that the people who are making decisions like, let's replace income tax in the IRS with tariffs, which seems to be the sort of economic principle that the Trump administration is operating on, is that somehow the economy of this country is going to be switched over to some kind of tariff system. Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for so many reasons. One, nobody else agrees with it. Two, it's a covert hidden tax. It's a tariff, but it's really a tax. Because what's going to happen is you're ostensibly charging another country for the right to bring in goods into our country, but that's not what happens. Instead, what happens is the costs of that, the increased cost that the government's charging to these other countries, actually ends up being translated into expenses that the companies have to pay to get their goods. They're going to pass those expenses onto us. We're the ones who have to pay for this increase in the products that are coming across the border. And if they continue coming across the border at all, it threatens the entire livelihood of so much of what we rely on. And you can go do the research on what it is that we get from Mexico and what it is that we get from Canada to see. We get a lot. Trump put something out about how Canada basically is a leech on us and how they don't really provide us with anything, and we basically subsidize their existence. I don't believe that's true. I don't think that works out economically at all to be true. Because if Canada was nothing but a leech on us, we would have a very, very different cultural set of values connected with Canada. If that were actually economically true, then we wouldn't think and act the way towards Canada that we do, right? Most Americans love Canada and vice versa. We have a wonderful relationship because we know they're not leeching on us, right? So, these things just don't ring true because they just can't be true. But that's what I mean about not listening to what these people say, because what they say doesn't make sense on purpose. Let me say this. I'll throw this out there because I don't know if this is broadly understood, and then we can move on. I'll use this question to make this point. I hate it when I had it right there and I go, yeah, I'm about to make this point, and then I totally lose the point. Live, baby. This is what you get. 1 second. Let me think about this. Oh my God. That's it. That's actually a little embarrassing right now. Had this full point to make and then it just disappeared. We'll come back to that. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed right now. Because I was so onto the tariff thing and the economics of that. It'll come back to me. I'm just going to live with the embarrassment. Okay. But what I do want to do before we carry on with this is flip over to some Benson cam, because I need to fulfill my promise of giving you guys Benson cam. So let me flip over here, see if did that go over? Yes, there you go. There's our little bundle of furry joy on my chair in the living room. And you can just kind of soak up the furry wonderfulness of that. This dog is definitely helping us on a daily basis. He is the most wonderful companion. I cannot recommend companion dogs enough. They are just, I love them. Oh, let me check something. Because I might. There we go. Okay, we've popped out of that. So let me go back to my screen here with you guys. There we are. Sorry, I got distracted there. All right, let's get back to it. Yes. I'm going to totally blow off that I was about to tell you guys something that I thought was important and totally spaced on it. And we're just going to move on. And if it comes back to me, it will come back to me. Wow, that's actually the first time I think that's happened to me in a live where I just totally lost the complete thought. I'm not going to harp on it anymore. Okay. Young Matador asks, hey, Chris, last week marked the anniversary of LRH's death. How do top cult members deal with a founder's death? I think Miscavige and his colleagues would have been scared of what would happen next. Yes. Yes, very much that they were scared of what was going to happen next. No question about it. It was 39 years ago that L. Ron Hubbard died. Excuse me. And they announced it at the Palladium, I think, Hollywood Palladium. Not a very big venue, but they called, everybody there and did that. How do top cult members deal with a founder's death? Well, that's the transition period, isn't it, right? Some deal with it in panic mode. They don't know what to do. There was no succession plan. There was no turnover or thought of that. Maybe it happened suddenly or nobody saw the death coming. And cults have fallen apart because of this. They just disperse. Nobody steps up. Nobody knows how to step up, or nobody is in a position to step up because there is nobody else in the group, especially in these smaller groups where there's just nobody there to pick up the pieces. Sometimes somebody will try. Usually what that results in is factioning. There's a schism or a split, and one leader will take a group and another guy or woman will pop up and take another group or whatever. People will start disagreeing on the dogma or the foundational elements of it, and we get, offshoots, denominations, if you will. So that's a very, very common result of a cult leader dying off. Let's see. Then the other thing that happens, of course, is there is some kind of succession plan. Maybe it's in writing. Maybe the founder or the leaders saw their death coming or wanted there to be some kind of legacy. Often this will be left to family of the founder. It's kept in-house that way, in family that way. We can look at the Moonies. for example, right? Moon's family, his widow and 3 kids, basically split up the Mooney empire. If I understand how that all went down, right? One of them took over the gun cult, right? And the gun manufacturing arm of the Unification Church's empire. Yeah, I actually did say that, right? The gun manufacturing arm of the Unification Church empire. I mean, that's legit. It's pretty crazy what people get up to out there. And so that's split up into those vying factions, right? So that's kind of what happens there. As far as Miscavige and Scientology go, yeah, I'm pretty sure they were terrified when Hubbard actually kicked off as to what to do, right? Because there was a will, and I believe most of the money went to, or a lot of the money went to Hubbard's family members, and Miscavige didn't want that going down. And so there was, there's controversy over whether Hubbard's will is actually his final will and his real wishes. We know for an absolute fact now that they lied about every part of not only his life, but his death to the Scientologists. You guys know more. I posted a critical clip this week on trying to make this point that you guys know far, far, far more about Scientology than Scientologists do, by a long shot. So they were freaking out, and they were coming up with story after story. And then there was the intrigue of, Pat Broker, and did he have the higher OT levels, or where were these upper OT levels? And there was that whole thing. So there can be a struggle, generalizing that, there can be a struggle over who's going to be the source of the dogma now, because once the founder's gone, they as source are gone. So now who's the new source point, or will there be one? Can it only be the founder's words that are holy, or can we, can the next guy up have a prophet status? I'm thinking of the Mormons, for example, right? Can we have an ongoing series of prophets who bring the good word, or can revise earlier words from earlier prophets and actually change the dogma? That's the only reason I believe that the Mormon Church has survived at all, is because it's been able to respond proactively by changing itself to a changing world. One of the biggest challenges with Scientology is that they sort of openly refuse to do that in a lot of ways. Obviously, they have made changes to accommodate the modern world in a lot of ways, but the base core dogma of Scientology is still rabidly homophobic, for example, right? And that's not going to change. Or is it? Right? The other way you can go back and revise the dogma without having a new prophet status is do what Miscavige has been doing, which is basically be a covert prophet, where you do get to make changes, but you don't let anybody know that you're the one doing it. It's all the original founder who's doing it, right? Oh, his words were corrupted beyond repair by all of these secretaries and typists and editors, and so we got rid of all them and restored it to what he really meant, right? And of course, it's wildly different than what he really meant. Anyway, you get the point. So, okay, so there you go. Let's carry on here. Let me just. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's carry on. Okay, OBG Foster, what breed is Benson? My dog is over 17, and I'm facing a sad day soon. I need a friendly, cuddly, yes. Okay, good. Let me pop that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let me see that a little bit easier. Okay, so Benson is as far as we know, okay, Benson is a rescue. We don't know exactly what breeds are mixed up in Benson, but we do. But according to the vet, our dog is a Shih Tzu and probably Lhasa Apso mix. I hope I'm pronouncing those right. And he's got these great big feet. and this and you know, the Shih Tzu kind of head and body and stuff. And so so we think that's what his mix is. And he's, I think, 5, or I think he's going to turn 6 this year. And that's our doggy. Okay. I hope that yeah. Oh, I'm sorry about your dog, OBG Foster, getting up there in years. I hope that works out. All right, let's see here. X-Cyan. Let me roll back up there. Okay, aren't the things said in session supposed to be held sacrosanct and confidential and not to be used to judge the pre-clear, the PC? That's what they tell you. It's what they say. It's not how it works out at all. It's confidential in terms of nobody's going to take a pre-clear folder. Nobody in Scientology is going to take your pre-clear folder and go down to the local newspaper or, you know, take it home and start, you know, scanning pages from it and throw it up on the internet or something. Nobody in Scientology is going to do that with your information. It's internally, externally, it's pretty confidential unless you become a direct public enemy of the church, at which time that information is, well, it's fair game, because you're fair game and anything goes when fair game happens. So all rules and bets are off once you've been declared suppressive and are being fair gamed. But up until then, it would be inconceivable to Scientologists that they would share your information outside the church. But inside the church, not so clear at all. There are no such strictures, and lots of people within the church could and will have access to your information. Everyone who audits you, as you know, their auditors who audit you, have full access to all of your folders and files. Your case supervisor, the people who oversee your auditing and delivery, have full access to all of your files, pre-clear folders, ethics files, all of it. Your ethics officer and anybody who's holding the function of ethics in the organization, which means not just the one person who's interviewing or seeing you or interfacing with you, but their boss and their next boss and the boss above them, all of them have full access to all of your files if they want it. Ethics file, pre-clear folder if needed. Sometimes there are individuals who will hold the line within the organizations and say, no, just because you're the ethics officer doesn't mean you get to look in his pre-clear folder. Go fuck yourself. You are the ethics guys. We're the tech guys. You don't get to have access to that. Sometimes you will find individuals who will hold the line, but that's rare, because most of the time it's, you know, we're all one big happy family team staff here, right? And we're all trying to handle this guy. And so, you know, we all have access to the information. And finally, that's all just sort of officially within the body of the church, as you have these different lines of people who can have access to your information. Then you have the fact of anybody with a key or anybody who has access to the folder rooms has access to your information. And yes, there have been, you know, nosy Nelsons in Scientology who have made a practice out of just going and finding out about people and opening up files and reading them because they're looking for salacious drama or whatever about, you know, people they know. That happens. That absolutely does. So, you know, there's the rules of it and how it's supposed to be, and then there's, you know, the reality of it. But there you go. All right. Ex-witness Vernon, do you think Mike Rinder's 2 kids in the Sea Org already know about his death? Yes, I'm absolutely positive they do. They were probably briefed the day it happened. I doubt that they were, you know, even, you know, when there's a death in Scientology, when somebody, especially a Sea Org member, a staff member, has someone close to them die, they're usually offered a session. Would you like a session? Would you like to, get an ARC break session or something? Have some help dealing with that. And people often will say yes, they do want the session to help. That's the only way and the only acknowledgement Scientology ever offers to a grieving family member or spouse or whatever when someone dies, is they do acknowledge in the moment the grief is real, and would you like a session to deal with that? I was going to make all that point to say I doubt that they were even offered a session to deal with the grief of losing their actual biological father, because familially and spiritually speaking, those kids gave up their father, years and years ago to Scientology. They stopped thinking about him that way. And the tragedy of their lives as second generation Sea Org kids is that, for many, many years of their upbringing, Mike Rinder as their dad wasn't around a whole lot. And that's something he talks about, he talked about. So I'm not in any way denigrating Mike out of turn. I mean, Mike talked about it, right? It's just, there are no Sea Org members who are adequate present parents for their children. That's just, those two things don't go together. They're impossible for them to go together. There has never been good parenting in the Sea Org of any kind. No one has ever given anybody in the Sea Org good parenting. Right. So I'm not singling out Mike here, right? But I am pointing out that the kids of his, one of whom, Taryn, has been on a decade of straight up attack against her father, she doesn't really think about him that way. So for whatever reason, I'm making that point. Okay. Let's carry on. George Smiley, I agree with ex-cult members when they say people don't join high control groups because they want to join a cult. But what do you think some people want to join groups that are clearly authoritarian? Oh, but do you think some people want to join? Yes, absolutely they do. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to our emotional needs. Right? Structure, systems, order. Some people feel a very, very strong need for this in their lives. I think everybody needs some sense of organization and structure. This is why we evolved to have social hierarchies, right? To structure ourselves in groups the way we do with, rank and rating and leaders and followers and all of that. We just naturally fall into that play. We don't have to think about that ever. There's no thinking involved. It's all very, very instinctive because it's literally how we're built to be. Some people crave that order and structure and need to be told what to do, or feel they need to be told what to do. And it doesn't have to be pathological. We all seek comfort in social circumstances and settings and structure, and we seek direction. We don't necessarily always know what to do with ourselves or how to live our lives or what's best for us. And when you're raised in an environment where you are made to believe that you're incapable of deciding for yourself what's good, bad, right, and wrong, you're incapable of knowing how to make decisions for yourself in your life. You need to have this structure and authority system in place in order for you to not fall by the wayside or go the wayward path of, indecency or immorality or something, whether this is religious or cultural or ideological or whatever the control structure is that's driving this thinking. People can be driven to believe that they are just not capable of making decisions for themselves. And so they turn to systems to make their decisions for them, or the majority of their decisions for them, right? Or to put a system in place where those decisions are ready made. It's already figured out. You don't have to do a lot of thinking. And I'll give you an example. The military, right? The military has a real attraction for some people because of all the things I just said, because of the order and structure that it provides. They'll literally tell you this. I'm not putting thoughts or words into people's minds when I say this. They say it. They tell you this is why they do it. So this is why some people will, when they have, now when you ask me, you know, are there people who will join groups that are clearly authoritarian, more so than the military, right, where we go really past the beyond the pale. Here is where I think you're going to find people who may have, for lack of a better word, I'll say pathological needs for structure and order and command, right? Where they are perhaps codependent or have been raised in a codependent way, where they need, you know, a leader figure in their life. They need someone to tell them what to do harshly and with punishment, because that's what they're used to, because maybe that's how they were raised. I don't want to say across the boards that the only people who crave authoritarian structures are pathologically brought up. I don't think it's that simple or easy to explain. Humans are complicated constantly, you know. So I will say, though, that that in my opinion, the majority of people who would be craving really authoritarian control structures in their lives are people who are either spoiled because they don't know that they have been raised in an authoritarian system most of their life, and therefore that's what they need or want, and so they're kind of messed up and they don't even know, or, you know, it's they've just been, yeah, it's something like that. Okay. Carry on here. Just going to check in. Yeah. Okay, good. Hey, hun. How concerned are you with America's descent in authoritarianism? Trump and Musk seem to be speed running Yarvin's neo-feudalistic ideology. My heart goes out to my American cousins over the pond. Thank you. Our hearts need it. Yeah, it's not good right now. There's a lot of people very, very concerned about this. There's a lot of people who are very, very concerned about the speed running. Yeah. Things are happening fast. Our institutions are strong, and the America is geographically a very, very large place. There's a lot of reasons why speed doesn't work in their favor in terms of trying to overwhelm this country and overwhelm our structures and institutions. You know, we are 50 federated states, and things have a lot of filters to go through before it actually hits the ground and is enacted. And so we are dealing with people who don't understand those concepts and are trying desperately to get away with as much as they can before they are stopped, because they know that they don't have unlimited power or time to enact all the things that they want to do. And anybody who wasn't paying attention during Project 2025 stuff, well, I hope you're paying attention now, because that is the playbook that's being followed. It's not hard to figure this out. I would invite you to become familiar with a man named Robert Vaughn. He is in Trump's Office of Management, and is basically running the and budgeting the purse strings, right? And this is a man who was an architect of Project 2025, not just a player, an architect of it, and a outspoken, self-identifying Christian nationalist. That's who's running the purse strings, and is the name and face behind a lot of what is going on right now. Not all of it by any stretch. This is a team activity, and there's a lot of irons in the fire right now on the Trump train. Trump is just a rubber stamp for a lot of this. He doesn't understand it, he hasn't read it, doesn't want to read it. He's neurologically incapable of doing so. He's not a real super capable person when it comes to processing information. And his narcissism, you know, constantly is getting in his way with that as well. But it's not just narcissism that he's challenged by. So he's got a lot going on personally, but when it comes to, you know, head of state matters, he'd rather be golfing. We already know this. This is historical record. This isn't my opinion. Go look at the record. Go look at the schedule. Go look at what the man does. Keep your eye on that ball. What are they doing? Not what are they saying. Trump's job is to be the shit stirrer, to come out and say the craziest, stupidest, most insane things to drive all of you nuts. So you're in turmoil all the time and can't effectively fight back because you're so strung out and exhausted by all the stupidity. This is purposeful. This must be understood. This is what it is to be in an authoritarian descent cycle, is to watch absolute crazy things take over the public discourse. And they take over the public discourse because our emotions go so over the top, because we are so offended by the assaults on what we thought of as normal and real and actual things are suddenly shown to be, oh, this all exists just because we're all agreeing it exists, you know, in this sense of reality is agreement, you know. Well, in this sense of civilization and society and laws and government and structures, yeah, that's what it comes down to. And these guys challenge all of those agreements and threaten them and break them apart purposefully. And we all sit here going, no, they couldn't possibly. Yeah, that's exactly what they are trying to do. And to the degree that we don't fight back against that actively, we let them get away with it. So, you know, so we got to push back very, very hard. And this involves us working together. And so this is why you see me talking about community, meet your neighbors, go out and talk to people, even the ones you disagree with, the ones that trigger you, the ones that make you want to punch them in the face. You got to go talk to these people, because we are not each other's enemies. And the way that democracy dies is when we view each other in our democracy as enemies rather than as people who have disagreements and can resolve and compromise and figure it out and work together anyway. And and everybody is like, no, we're not there anymore. I just want to kill them. Well, if that's true and you can't get over yourself, then we're not going to make this. You know, it's kind of that way as I see it. This is my opinion. It's how I see it. So, so these are the thoughts that go through my mind when I watch these people do what they do. If it weren't Trump and Musk, you know, it'd be somebody else, right? There's a confluence of events. There's a sort of a perfect storm of things that have come together that I've been talking about for months on this channel. Agree with me or not, you know, I don't pretend at any point along the line to have this all figured out and I got it taped and I know exactly what to do. I don't. I'm doing the best I can like everybody else, but I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm trying to share stuff with you guys as fast as I can when I have some stuff figured out, as far as, well, here's a piece of the puzzle and here's a piece of the puzzle, and I don't know if this is the whole thing, but here's some pieces and maybe this will help us sort it out. Because we can kind of see the picture for real rather than just the little bits and pieces that are being, you know, burned up in front of us or thrown at us or whatever, right? You know, these lame analogies. So anyway, that's kind of how I'm thinking about this stuff, is we need to come together. It is a matter of survival now. It's not a matter of, oh, you know, well, we're the big melting pot and we all have these, you know, big disagreements. That's how I was raised, is we're a melting pot. We have all these disagreements, but we can always compromise and we can always work things out. And if we all collectively have decided that that is no longer possible, then none of this is possible. So I think we need to take a good hard look at ourselves and how we're approaching our citizenship and our social contract, and, you know, and how we think about our fellow Americans. We're at that level now. It's existential. I wish it weren't. I didn't start making a YouTube channel and talking about cults and stuff, you know, with this kind of thought in mind of where all this was going. It kind of sucks, you know, but it is, we've got to deal with it. I don't want to just roll over and let this happen. And I don't think you should either. And we're nowhere near the point where we should be rolling over and letting this happen. There's years still to go with this, and we can turn this thing around. Here's what I wanted to say earlier. I knew it would come back to me. There's something we have now. This is another point of hope that I wanted to give you guys. We have something now that we haven't ever had in history. And I have sat here and pontificated about cycles of history and about, just checking something here. Sorry, there we go. Okay, I have gone on with you about anacyclosis and about how empires rise and fall through history. It's inarguable. Every civilization that has risen has fallen. Will America? Yes. Is America falling now? Maybe. But what we have that no one else in history has ever had, or even a close approximation to what we have now, is we have the internet. We have the ability to communicate with one another across this world in microseconds. And we have the ability to share broadly information with millions of people very, very quickly. This is incredible power. This is power that is in the hands of every citizen of the world, potentially, and certainly within our grasp. And historically, it's unprecedented. No citizenry has ever had the power we have right now. And this must not be ignored, and it must not be just sort of, taken for granted. Yeah. No, really get it from a historical perspective, you understand, right? I think my point's clear. This is new, and this is potentially game-changing for them and the way they've been screwing us, the wealthy elites I'm talking about, right? Because let's be real, we're in a class war now, and we have been for some time, and now we finally are getting the gloves off, and we're finally seeing it for what it is. So if that's the case, and I believe it is, we are more empowered than any other lower class in history to be able to organize and to be able to therefore work together to push back against what they are trying to do to us in ways that we can organize and make things happen in ways that no other resistance or lower class, middle class have ever had. And that's so game changing that I think it even could potentially throw off, past models. But here's the clincher. Here's the kicker, right? Here's the thing that here's the fly in the ointment. Our emotions, our ability, our lizard brain, that whole thing I was talking about at the beginning. If we lose hope, if we lose our ability to think critically or clearly right now, we won't navigate this well. And we won't take advantage of this incredible boon, this tool, this internet that we have to get the work done that needs to be done in order to fight back, right? And I'm not even suggesting like ground level guerrilla tactic kind of thinking. I'm talking about organizing still around the foundations and institutions that exist right now. Don't give up on them. We're not at a point where we should be giving up on them yet. Don't give up on the DNC. Don't give up on the Democratic Party or the party system or local government or city or state. Don't give up on these things. They're strained. They are stressed. They are, like being tested right now like never before in our history. But don't give up on them yet, right? This idea, I went to some meeting yesterday where there was sort of this preached defeatism that the government's useless in all of this. And it's like, no, the government's not useless yet at all of this, especially at our levels, at the city and state levels. So not going to go on and on. I've probably already gone on too long on that answer, but those are some of my thoughts on that. And I remembered that bit from before. So there you go. Xenu. How was the big wide world outside of Scientology after you left? Scary, exciting? Did you seek to do things that you weren't allowed to do while a Sea Org member? Now you're going to make me smile and laugh at all those crap I did when I got out. Oh, an hour in. Hey, here we are, an hour in. Okay, good. One second. All right. When I first got out of Scientology, I felt like a kid. Actually, here's the point. Yeah, right. Developmental stages and all that. I did. I was like a big kid, man. I just could not absorb everything fast enough. It was awesome. I was just kind of smiling ear to ear and absorbing things. The world was one of, 11 years ago, the world was one of hope and promise and like, oh my God. And I did not bring my Scientology kumbaya out into the world. I wasn't that naive that I thought that everybody was on board and that kind of thing with, with stuff. It was pretty obvious right away that there were lots of different ideas about things in lots of different ways. But it was exciting. It was fun. Thrilling. That's how I felt going out into the world. I was thrilled. I was scared. I was very, very scared. Especially up until I got my basics covered, right? Until I got the roof over my head and the transportation and a job and a food, right? Income source to therefore have food source, right? Until I got those basics, the basic physical needs taken care of, like I was stressing. But once that was under control, then it was just, oh my God, look at all this time I have on my hands. So much time. I can do whatever I want to, right? I learned how to play some games. I was making some friends. It was a blast. I loved it. Yeah. Did I seek to do things I wasn't allowed to do while a Sea Org member? Mm-hmm. Over time, I have. Yeah. I mean, I've dropped acid. I have taken shrooms. Of course, I live in Colorado. I get high all the time because I can, Definitely not supposed to do any of those things. I am fully disqualified from ever going back into the Sea Org because I've taken LSD, right? You cannot be a Sea Org member and do that. And so, oh gosh, no, not. But I was always holding out hope I could go back, no, that those hopes are dashed. There's a lot of exploration in the world to do when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to drugs, when it comes to alcohol, when it comes to fun, when it comes to mountaineering, sports, driving, just doing things with people, playing games, climbing, hiking, eating. I've talked about eating, how basically when I was in the Scientology and the Sea Org, how a steak dinner was quite literally a fantasy that something I would fantasize about was having a steak dinner. That was the level of where I was at as a Sea Org member, is having a steak dinner was a fantasy. I've had a lot of steak dinners. I know how to cook a really good steak now, So all of those things, it's just not even a conversation it's not even an argument to be had as far as in the cult versus out of the cult and the experience of life. The difference inside a cult, your world is gray and dark. It feels that way. You're talked to that way. There is very few and far between is there a ray of sunshine that brings color into your life. The sounds are drab. Voices are monotone. And when you escape that into this big kaleidoscope world, it's like, being assaulted by rainbows. That's how I'm going to explain or try to summarize that feelings, those feelings of it. There's no comparison. And as bad as things may be right now in the world, and as bad as stressed out as some of us might be, I thank you for asking me this today, because this really highlights for me, and I hope from what I've been saying, it helps highlight for you how awesome our lives are compared to the world of living in an authoritarian cult structure system, right? And what it does to you and to your ability to experience the world. It robs you of it. And so, when you're out, you get it back, because it's always there, right? It's just you're not letting yourself have it when you're in a cult. You get out and, okay. There we go. Anthony Spurgeon, what's an experience in Scientology so singular and unique you haven't seen anything like it in any other religion or cult? That's a great question. The auditing process it has many analogies in other groups and practices. There's nothing else quite like auditing as a ritualistic practice. It's unique in that sense. Word clearing there's a thing called there are a few things in Scientology I'm thinking about right now that are so different from what other groups do that I've just never really seen that. I guess this would answer this question then. Yeah, like word clearing, false data stripping. There's a thing called debug tech. Thinking about all these little peculiarities of Scientology. Real practical, hands, on the wheel kind of stuff, like stuff you do in Scientology that some of it is very, very, very commonplace. Word clearing, looking up words in a dictionary. But how ritualistic it is, how definitive it is, how you have to follow this procedure and it has to be this way, or you're just not doing it right. It's not good enough to just open a dictionary and look at the definition and go, oh, okay, and move on. No. You got to do this whole thing. And if you don't do that, you're not doing it right. And so therefore you're doing it wrong. And if you're wrong, you're out tech. And if you're out tech, you're out ethics. Like this connection, these connected dots between, if you do not apply our processes and rituals properly, you are morally, reprehensible for some reason, right? You're like morally corrupted because you're not doing our procedures, in a way that will benefit you in the best possible way, and it like this kind of thinking that's constant control on you. You're self-policing and self-controlling when they're not doing it, when they're not standing over you doing it themselves, right? It's just constant in all these different weird ways in your life, like learning, education. That's pretty unique and different. Because I cannot say, conversely, I look at auditing and I look at the experiences I had in auditing, the blowout wins, oh my God, the epiphanies, right? The cognitions, as they call them, the life-changing, whoa, I feel so amazing. And then 2 days later, you don't even remember it. I mean, it's just gone. I mean, it wasn't life-changing. It just feels so amazing that these are words you attach to it that you don't really mean, because It's not. It's not changing your life. It's just giving you an experience that just feels orgasmic in the moment. But an orgasm doesn't change your life, but boy, does it feel amazing when it's happening, right? Like it feels like totalist. Your entire body is experiencing it. And you're like, wow, this was awesome, right? But it didn't change your life. So I can't look to auditing and go, yeah, it's so unique and different that nobody else has ever experienced anything like that. I don't think that's true, right? I think auditing gives people very run-of-the-mill awe, euphoria experiences. I don't think they're special at all. I think what's special about the auditing experience is the interpretation we lay on top of it. And that's what fucks you, right? That's what fucks you hard, is you believe you're actually encountering past life memories, and therefore the entire map of the universe and your understanding of reality has to change because you believe that you have past life memories, which you don't. And the only reason you're convinced of that is because of this feeling that you have that is so good and amazing. It must be true. No, it doesn't have to be true at all that you lived in a past life in order for me as an auditor to induce in you an amazing experience. I can give you some LSD and give you an amazing experience. It doesn't mean you lived before, but if I tell you that's what it means, it must be true. That whole cult control crap. So I can't say auditing is actually really anything super special as far as the experience of it. You go take some ayahuasca. Ayahuasca. You'll feel exactly the same way. Ayahuasca, right? So anyway, there's an answer. Let's move on. I'm spending too long on some of these. All right. How we doing here? Okay. George Smiley, do you think KSW applies to rejecting all self-help advice, save Hubbard tech, even self-help goop created by dedicated Scientologists? Yes. The answer to your question, George, is anything that is being offered to you in or out of Scientology will be harmful to you to the degree it is not aligned with what Scientology is or does. Everything in your life should revolve around the proper or standard application of standard tech, Scientology. There is one right way to do it. And if you follow that one right path, you guaranteed success. To the degree you stray from that, you will fail miserably and end up in a pit, right? And that's the exact analogy Hubbard makes, is Scientology is the carefully taped path through the labyrinth. And if you fall off that path, you will fall into a hole and or a pit or whatever, and good luck getting out. So regardless of the source of any other help or assistance or anything else that you're doing in your life, if it's not aligned with Scientology and doing it right, you're fucked. In a nutshell. All right, Stuart Gorman, do you think Dems will gain a majority in the House in 2026? Oh, yes, I do. I mean, and why? And that's a very, very safe prediction for me to make, because classically speaking, the midterms are the place where the voters just go, oh, what? We didn't mean that, right? Like they vote for some new party or group or whatever because they're all out of sorts, and then the new party comes in and either messes things up worse or doesn't do much of anything. Either one of those outcomes gives the voters the incentive to flip the script and change the majority holders, right, in the House, at the state level or at the federal level. So historically speaking, that happens all the time. And so the safe bet is, yes, of course, the Dems will take the House in 2026. Hell, I think they take the House right now. I think there's enough people pissed off already that, that it would not be hard. See, this last election was the Dems to lose. I mean, my attitude about the last election, I don't know, I may have said a few things differently in the past, but as I sit here right now, right, all the learning and thinking and listening and stuff I've been doing for the last many months about this, my view is that the Dems are the ones who lost this thing, and they lost it bad, mainly because of Biden's ego, right? That he didn't drop out. He shouldn't have tried to rerun. Biden should not have done that, and because he did that, he set up Kamala to lose, and she did lose. And the Dems' messaging is off, and they've been off for years, and none of that is changed. The Dems were not doing great, and then they just lost this election. They've been doing bad for many years. But they're the alternative. They're the only viable alternative that we have right now, because we're still stuck in the two-party system thing, and we've all talked about why that's a bad idea. But America loves what America loves, right? And binary choices is something that this country is all about. It's a cultural problem that we have, and it's deep with us. Binary choices. We just want yes, no, good, bad, right, wrong, black, white. That's how we want things. It's part of our undoing that we are that way, culturally. I'll throw that log on the fire for it, so I'll casually dump that on you and move on. All right, let's carry on here. While I'm on this topic, though, I do need to say one thing. Maybe I shouldn't be this sensitive, but it pisses me off, and so I'm going to say this. People who represent me as far left, as though I'm a far leftist, piss me off, because I'm not. And it makes me mad to be misrepresented. And I needed to say that out loud, because somebody did that. A number of people have done that. And I really don't know where they're coming from. I can't even begin to understand how somebody could listen to me talk about politics and ideology and belief and walk away thinking I'm far left, radically far left. You're going to have to explain that to me, because it doesn't make any sense. I would never self-identify as far left. Anyway, it just got in my craw, and I realized I needed to say something about that this week, so this is as good a time as any to say that. All right, here, let's carry on. Xenu, did you see a group of Quaker congregations filed a lawsuit to block ICE raids on their houses of worship and other protected areas because Trump's order denies guarantee of religious liberty? I did not see that the Quakers had filed a lawsuit about that, but good for them. I believe there will probably be many lawsuits about all of the nonsense coming out of Trump's executive orders. We are not a dictatorship. We are not an authoritarian system, the United States. And this love affair that authoritarian leaning people have with executive orders and the misuse of them is getting really old. So I will throw that out there. But as far as this thing goes, no, I did not see this particular lawsuit, but I absolutely was sure such lawsuits would be happening. I'm happy right now. I'm hopeful right now that the reason we're not hearing or seeing a whole lot out of Democrats or Democratic leadership right now is because they're kind of shutting the fuck up and getting to work for once, rather than just babbling at us, thinking with things they think we want to hear. I'm hopeful that this last election and the situation we're in right now is a wake-up call for them to stop fucking this thing up and get their shit together. We'll see. That's what I'm hopeful for right now on that line, right? And that they are formulating policies and messaging of a more populist nature that is still true to liberal democratic goals and ideology, right? So I'm hoping. It's a big ask at this point, but there's a new DNC chair. We'll see what happens. All right. I hope these guys can get their shit together. All right. Xenu, do you think that tariff wars will affect you personally? Yes, I do. How about other executive orders? I had to talk down a girl I know in Loveland who was panicked and reassure her it would get better. Okay, fair enough. The tariffs are going to affect all of us if they go into effect, and if they go into effect at the percentages and degree that we're talking about, where we're actually inciting full-on trade wars with our trading partners, much less China, then we're going to be in for a lot of economic pain. And there are other things happening with our economy and with the world economy that go beyond just the tariff issue too, in terms of wealth redistribution. And the speed with which asset value, assets are being sucked up by assets like houses, for example, right? Or land, or real estate, things like that. It's gonna be a problem. And I just watched a whole video today, actually. Again, I'll switch you over to turn you on to Gary's economics channel for more breakdown on this, but. This idea, well, I'm a homeowner right now, I'm safe, right? My house is just going up in value, everything's going to be great. That's very short-sighted thinking. And it's very individualistic thinking right now. And that's how this happens, is people hunker down and only think of themselves, and I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, and then they're not. And by the time they're really not fine, nobody's fine, and nobody's capable of being fine anymore. That's not the time to have your wake-up call. You got to have it now. So, so simply holding on to your assets and thinking, well, I'm fine, and the value's going up, so everything's going to be wonderful. I want you to think that thought through a little bit, right? Anyway, and so so we got some pain coming our way with that. Could it all turn around on a dime? Could he cancel all this? Could we not do this? Could we maybe do some sensible stuff? Sure, any point along the line, that would be wonderful. But the direction they're going in, like a goddamn rocket right now, is not good for us. That's how I understand things. And I do believe that it will affect prices for everything: food, goods, medicines. We have a funding pause, which has been blocked by the courts now, but we have an administration that is already stated in crystal clear terms that it does not believe that the traditional trajectory of the American government as providing a social safety net for its citizens is a good thing. They want to reverse course on all of that, and they want it all gone. They don't want Social Security. They don't want a tax system. They want to deal with it all through tariffs or something. They want to get rid of the IRS. And at first, an awful lot of people out there would go, yeah, let's not have the IRS. Again, short-sighted thinking, right? Looks good right this second. Now think the thought through. Right? Oh no, and we're going to strip the government down to the bare bones. And I mean, these are just people who have no idea what they're talking about. It's the same kind of rhetoric. If any of you are familiar, you might have, remember, you don't hear this anymore. You used to hear this a lot, and then it finally got killed off. But you used to hear, I can balance my checkbook. Why can't the government? I have to balance my budget. Why can't the government? Right? Making a direct comparison between personal finances and government finances as though they're the same kind of animal. And they are not. And they don't operate on the same rules at all. And they shouldn't. It's a very different thing, doing very different things, right? So your checkbook, and I think the reason this went away is because people don't have to balance their checkbooks anymore. So they don't talk about the government finances in the same way anymore. But it was just as ridiculous an idea and standard to put there as, you know, oh, well, I don't want to pay any taxes, so let's get rid of the IRS and we'll handle it all with tariffs. This just doesn't. It makes about as much sense as me saying, hey, Catholic Church, you know what? Skip that Jesus guy. You need to put Xenu up on the cross. What's the problem? Why are you guys all yelling at me? What's the problem here? Yeah, like it feels like that kind of level of stupid. You know, like that level of like, what the hell is going on here? Kind of. I hope that's clear. I'm rambling now. I'm going to move on. But it's just like, what is going on? Okay. Sam Slade. Let's get to Sam's question here. In a recent podcast, John Atack, in a recent podcast, indicated Scientology has never been that successful in Japan. But why has Scientology been relatively quite a bit more successful in Taiwan? Any ideas? That's a great question, Sam. Okay, let me think about that one for a second, because that's actually a legit point. Scientology has never been successful in Japan. Okay, here's my thinking on this, right or wrong, and I could be very wrong about this. So within my knowledge of Japanese culture and history tradition, outside religions, and certainly a fringe religion led by a Westerner with flaming red hair who is so American that, you know, he's pretty goddamn American. It seems a stretch to me that the Japanese people and their cultural tradition would embrace somebody like that as a spiritual leader or guru. That's my first thought, right? Is there's a challenge there. That's a challenge culturally to make inroads there. It's not a challenge that Taiwan shares, because Japan has a history and tradition of closing itself off to outside influences and being it's a very insular culture that way, or at least it has that historical tradition of it. Obviously, they've opened themselves up to Western technology and Western influence in a huge way. You know, for many, many decades now. So don't get me wrong that I'm trying to imply that Japan as a culture is now completely like isolationist. I'm saying there's a historical tradition of that. And when you're talking about religion, you're talking about historical traditions, and not economics and religion part ways on this. Economics is like immediate income, immediate, rewards. Like you bring in a new economic system that is going to bring prosperity to people, they're going to be eager to bring that on board. Religion is a longer term commitment that doesn't have immediate rewards. So you start trying to bring, start saying, hey, this spiritual tradition you guys have, whatever it is. Yeah, really, it's actually Thetans, right? It's actually Xenu. It's actually your reactive mind. People are going to... So I don't know that Japan is like, they're not closed off to Scientology. Japan there are Scientology things going on there. I just think culturally they're not super open to it. As opposed to like Taiwan, which is much more open to importing Western ideas and stuff. But like I said, I could be completely off on this. I'm venturing right now into complete opinion based on very little fact, except my understanding of historical traditions in this region of the world, right? That's what I'm basing my answer on right now. So there could well be very realistic economic considerations as to why Scientology doesn't take off in Japan versus Taiwan. I'm actually not sure, because I haven't done any research on, how is the economic socioeconomic ladder in Japan these days? Is there a lot of expendable liquid wealth there to be spent on things like spiritual pursuits of clear and OT? Do people have the money for it, in other words? As opposed to Taiwan, is there a lot of liquid wealth there? I don't know, so I can't answer the question through an economic lens because I don't know. And I don't know, and I'm not going to comment on the psychological, cultural traits of Japan versus Taiwan because I don't know those either. So that's why I had to go to where I went to for the answer, and hope that satisfies. Interesting question and a very good one. I'd love to kind of find out more about it now that you brought it up. Okay, no name in NW. If you are against the Mexican tariff, do you have different ideas on stopping illegal drug and human trafficking into the U.S.? Yes. Yes, I do. I have many ideas on how to stop that or how to deal with that. Okay, first off, we need to decriminalize drugs, right? The way we've been dealing with drugs as a criminal problem, as a sort of criminal activity is, we're the problem. Let me back up a little bit before I go off into this very, very controversial territory. We're the problem. We are the consumers of the drugs, you, me, and thee. The government is trying to impose a set of standards on us that we don't want or agree with. That's why we use the drugs. Now, the drugs are a solution to a problem. Even Scientology knows this. And that problem usually has something to do with problems with the socioeconomic ladder and our wage disparity and our entire geographic regions and zip codes being robbed of opportunity. People can't live the life they want to live, so they turn to drugs to have some kind of euphoric, joyful experience in their life, which of course usually turns out down the road to have horrible, horrible consequences, because drugs, especially illegal drugs, have horrible, horrible consequences if you abuse them or overuse them, right? So it's this descending spiral kind of thing. And so this whole, well, we have to be the moral police and we have to control you people's lives and we have to make it illegal for you to own these substances because they're so unbelievably harmful to you. And we're the ones who are going to dictate that to you as the government, as law enforcement. We're going to tell you you can't have this stuff. And so your life has to continue to be miserable with no release or outlet of any kind whatsoever. And fuck you very much, right? And people don't respond well to that. And we get this social conflict. So drugs are a solution for people in their lives to the tune of millions and millions and millions and millions of people. I'm not talking about a couple people. We're talking about a massive worldwide problem. It's a problem in the Philippines. It's a problem in the United States. It's a problem in Australia. It's a problem in Latin America. It's a problem in Canada. It's a problem in Europe. There is nowhere in the world where drugs are not a problem when it comes to addiction. So criminalizing addiction has been a wonderful solution and works across the board. So what's the problem, right? Well, obviously, that's not true. Criminalizing addiction has been nothing but continuation of the problem. So my first point on this is that our entire approach and attitude about this is wrong and has been wrong through the entire 20th century. Everyone got it wrong. Whether it was religious morality that was the basis of it, whether it was civil morality and law that was the basis of the wrong-headed thinking, they got it horribly wrong. You will never, ever, ever solve addiction by throwing people in prison or shooting them or threatening them to stop doing what they cannot stop doing. Our whole approach has been totally flawed right from the get-go. So first thing is throw all that out. Just throw it out. Just get rid of it, right? It ain't working. And in fact, it's not only not working, it's making our life and problems more miserable. 3 strikes laws have tripled the prison population. Has that solved the drug problem in any way? Has it made any slightest impact on the drug problem to throw more and more and more addicts and drug dealers in prison? It hasn't even touched the problem. So it's not a solution to go shoot and kill people who are drug addicted. You're solving the wrong problem. That's the first thing. That changes everything overnight. I mean, if you really like change the philosophical approach to this and realize that you have a medical and addiction problem on your hands, you have a biological and social ill, that's the basis of your problems, right? Biology and social conflict and problems. Then you start dealing with the reason why people are taking drugs in the first place. And for some reason, which I actually don't understand, but will never agree with, people just can't get their head around this. Mostly because of religion, right? This whole tit for tat, sinners in the hands of an angry God attitude about people, that we're, basically evil and original sin and fucked up to start with, and it's only through the grace of God that we even deserve to live. This whole attitude, this self-effacing, self-defeating, I am nothing kind of attitude, contributes an awful lot to the punishment drive thinking directed toward people in our society. It's built into the fabric of our society that people are basically bad and must be punished into being good, despite the fact that clear-cut empirical evidence of every national tragedy that ever happened shows you the exact opposite is true. People bend over backwards to help one another in the face of tragedy. But we're all basically bad if you go to any preacher on any corner any day, right? So this spirit of punishment drive infuses every aspect of our culture and is what we're fighting against when it comes to the drug problem. So my solutions for this, right, are stop fighting the wrong problems. Stop making problems instead of solving them. The entire DEA and the entire drug and effort, the war on drugs, we lost because we're fighting ourselves. We're not fighting the cartels. The cartels only exist because of our demand for the product. You can't just point the finger at the people who profit from our weaknesses and then go, oh, they're all at fault. There's a point along the line when you have to kind of go and look in the mirror and go, I have something to do with this problem too. That analogizes to cult recovery really well, by the way, right? There's a certain point where you're blaming the cult leader, blaming the group, blaming the cult leader, blaming the group, and you get over that, and you get past that, and you get past the trauma and victimhood of it, and you come to a place where there's a point along the line where we all come to. This is not, I've worked with so many people and had so many people coming out of culty or coercive situations who come to this point where you realize, oh yeah, I kind of had something to do with this too. I made myself part of this. I did this too. So part of the picture is me. I guess I better deal with that part too. Why did I get into this group? Why did I stay with this person? Why did I put up with that abuse? You have to answer those questions for real for yourself in order to really recover from the situation to ensure you never let yourself do it again. Is it really so different with this, right? Like, yeah, we can point the finger at all the drug cartels all day long. We can annihilate. Okay, I could push a button and they're all dead. They're all gone. There's no more cartels tomorrow. All the operations are shut down. All the logistics lines are gone. All the product is gone. Have I now solved the drug problem? Right? Of course I haven't. Because the needs driving it are still there. And someone else is going to step up tomorrow and start filling that need. Point made, probably overmade, so I will carry on. But hope that. Hope that is an answer. It's the beginning of something. All right, let's carry on here. Debbie M. Hi, Chris. Could you please share the C.S. Lewis quote on Blue Sky? Would love to share and try to get more eyeballs on your work. Thank you very much. And I will absolutely put that quote into a thing, and I will get that up on Blue Sky. In fact, Blue Sky quote. Write a note to myself about that. Thank you, Debbie. Great suggestion. I do love that quote. Okay, let's carry on here. Gene Edmonds, if LRH had planned for a successor, who do you think he would have chosen? The system that L. Ron Hubbard had in place was not a single leader taking over. It was a council of people. It was called the Watchdog Committee and International Management. It was a group of people who were envisioned to run the operation. At least this is what was put together in issues that were reorganizing Scientology management as far back as 1978, 79 time period. The structural reorganization of Scientology's management happened a few times during the 70s. They were reorganizing things all the time. And this was not a gang of super competent, well experienced people. So what they proposed was often kind of silly, and that's why it would get revised and revised and revised and reworked and all of that. There were lots and lots of this going on, but the International Management Executive Committee, or IMEC, was something that was being put together when Hubbard was still around and kind of incoherently enough to run things in the 70s and 80s. They were putting this system together, and these were the people who had basically taken charge of different parts of the functions that L. Ron Hubbard was supposedly doing as the guy in charge. He was doing, establishment, and he was doing delivery, and he was seeing to public promotion, and he was seeing to marketing, and he was seeing to, these different aspects or functions that needed to be done across the entire church, right? Somebody needs to be in charge of the marketing of the church for Scientology. Somebody needs to be in charge of public outreach as a function. And this was being proposed and put together. And this committee were the guys who were going to be basically running Scientology under an executive director who was the head of this committee, but not a dictator. He was just the guy who coordinated and ran and proposed policies and sort of overall was a single person kind of organizing this thing. But it wasn't going to be that the executive director international was the same power base that L. Ron Hubbard had. The ED International wouldn't be able to write new tech or just throw off policy and throw it out. There would be this whole process and procedure to it to make sure that it aligned with what Hubbard had written and what he wanted. That was where things were going until Miscavige came into the scene and mixed it all up and took over. And first inside, he was part of this system and sort of navigated it in a very dominating, angry, manipulative way. And over the years, kind of rose and rose and got rid of certain key people in this structure and removed and declared and, allied with some people in certain ways to get what he wanted. And slowly but surely kind of moved up this board. And the 80s was a tumultuous time period for Scientology. There was all kinds of crap going on. And they were just managing it a mile a minute. So people were so distracted by all of that that, again, Miscavige was able to sort of move his way through this sort of system. So I don't know who exactly Hubbard would have chosen, but I think that his desire were along the lines of this system that was evolving. I think that's what he wanted. if there's information out there that he didn't want any of this and there's somebody else he wanted, I've never seen it. Everything I'm telling you is based on my own knowledge of what I've seen with my own eyes, of the written references and issues and policies that were coming out during that time. I've been exposed to a lot of this stuff, not all of it, but I've seen a lot. And these plans and the organizational structures and stuff, you know, it's all real. It's all written stuff in Scientology. So that's what I base my ideas on here. And I think that was how Hubbard envisioned passing the baton on, is he was going to pass it on to this group, not one person. That's my thinking on it. We answered that already. Ex-witness, what percentage of Sea Org members are married? Is there underage marriage in the Sea Org? I don't know what percentage of Sea Org members are married. I'd be guessing, especially at this point. And so I'm not going to guess because I don't know. But yes, there is. Is there underage marriage in the Sea Org? Yes. I'll just say that. Yes. Yes, there is. Nobody's marrying 12-year-olds in the Sea Org, but 17, 16, I think I've heard 15. Yeah. Okay. Right. Real quick here. Michael Yoder, what are your thoughts about the looming trade war with Canada, Mexico, and China? Yes, I think I spoke about that one. Talked about that. I'm not a fan. And X-Cyan, last question, and then we'll wrap up today. Do you think we as Americans will see the kind of protests that we had in the 1960s? Yes, I do. Yes. If things continue on the course that they are on right now, then we're not going to have any choice, right? We're absolutely going to have mass protests. I don't want that. I hope it doesn't come to that, but we're already racing at bullet speed toward that. So yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. Okay. And with that, yeah, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to close that off. I get to do this all right in front of me now. This is awesome. Okay, so I hope that me looking at you guys most of the time was a better experience for you. It kind of was for me. And you let me know in the Q&A, in the comments, and on the feedback on this from y'all who are watching this on the replay, what you thought. And if you have any other ideas for me as to how I might improve any of this, I am all ears. I am totally down for that. I am no longer feeling, for a long time, let me share this with you guys, because I don't know, you might want to hear this. You may have seen me over the years, you know, being kind of apologetic or, you know, mild or whatever about, you know, sharing my ideas or feeling like, you know, what I'm saying isn't what you want to hear or something. And that all's probably going to continue to be true, but I'm finding that I'm not caring as much. And by that, I mean, it's not that I don't care about your opinions or ideas or your feedback. I very, very much do. I want to reach more of you. But it's no longer a thing of, I feel like I should shut up. Put it that way. Yeah, let me put it that way. You know, you don't like what I like to say or whatever. It's cool. You know, I don't care. I'm here to help. I'm here to do the best that I can. And I can only do what I can do in terms of the personality contest aspect of this. And I think that's what I'm kind of giving up on, right? I mentioned that this week in my post about that thing with Liz is, you know, it's like I can't be everything for everybody. And I think I'm kind of exhausted with beating myself up about that. You know, it's like, take it or leave it, right? You want to misrepresent me as some far left radical who has, you know, hills he dies on and stuff. It's like, whatever, you know, people are going to say what they're going to say, and there's nothing I can do about that. I'm doing the best I can to put out stuff that I hope will help y'all, and positions and opinions and ideas that are really more intended to give you food for thought, things to think about, get you stimulated so you're thinking. Right? Instead of just reacting or feeling down or feeling like there's nothing we can do. There's always something we can do. We never, ever, ever should give up. Not ever. To the last, you know, to my dying breath, I will fight. That's who I am. And this is fighting, going out in the world and working with other people around you, meeting your neighbors, not giving over to reasons to hate, not giving into invitations to destroy things, not giving over to apathy or nihilism. I think these are important. I think now more than ever. And there's an awful lot of people who are kind of very worried right now and very stressing right now. And I think it's just more important that they get some words of wisdom and some food for thought than I be more worried about whether people like me or not. You know, I kind of passed that a little bit at this point. You either like me or you don't, but at least take what I say with a, you know, with some like, think about it. Just think about it. It's the best I think I can do. All right. And on that happy note, I want to thank all of you guys who are here supporting my channel and supporting my work and showing up every week and helping me along with this and giving me wonderful questions to answer. I love you guys. And I love the stuff you throw at me. So keep it coming. I did not this week. I meant to. I got so distracted by the new tech and what we were doing here. I did not go to my emails. I've got some questions that some of y'all have been sending me that I also want to bring up. So we'll do that next week. And on that happy note, I will see you guys next week. Okay. And I'll be recording with Tony here today. So you should catch Straight Up and Vertical tomorrow. If you like what I'm doing, you want to support my work, join me on Patreon. That's the best place to help me out. And it would be awesome if you could. If you have the ability to do that, that'd be great. All right, guys. Bye-bye.